welcome to my podcast. I begin every podcast with a bowl so that we can connect, find our center, and receive the insight from the podcast. In my last podcast, I spoke of what not being able to look forward, or coming out of lockdown and missing entertainment, and also feeling that feeling of boredom or foggy in the head. And it was a place that I had felt for a few days in the last few days of lockdown. And I had an unexpected visitor. Amy dropped in, and it was kind of surreal because it was like, oh my gosh, a new person in our house, and new energy and new vibe, and it was exactly the medicine that I needed to break me out of my fog. And I can see now how important it is for us to interact with other people and to move out of the lockdown and take the steps into interaction. So in this podcast, I'd like to introduce you all to Amy as we talk about who she is, what makes her tick, what she loves, what she defends, and what she wants to be when she grows up. So knowing that, I suppose, even though I know you really well, and I know you through courses and lots of things, we've journeyed a lot together, but what I really wanted to know was, who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah. Who are you on the inside? Who are you under the silence? Like, who are you when you're alone? Or what goes on? And what's coming up for you naturally?
Yeah, it's actually something that I've been feeling into a lot, and I've been finding that my external environment has been testing my boundaries and testing my morals and my values and where I stand. And I'm finding more and more that everything has just been taking me closer to just that, the point in me that just feels like just light or energy, and understanding that everything that springs from it is a choice of how much I choose to listen and how I choose to respond and how I feel I want to express my nature in any given moment, and however feels most authentic. But I feel like all of that is quite fluid and changing depending on what's happening around me. However, there's like this point that I'm beginning to just feel stronger and stronger, which is like this, I guess, like rod in a way that is this center point, where it's like I kind of feel into, and I trust and allow whatever rises from that to come out. But I feel like I don't have any words tangible to describe who I am either.
Yeah, because it's ever evolving and ever changing, and you're essentially evolving into space, or whatever you're showing up with in accordance with whatever you're faced with.
Yeah, and I'm feeling that. I realized that for quite a while. It's like my space was this small, tiny circle around my feet, and I'm actually learning how to sort of expand that space around me, so I have more space for my own self to reach out and express and create and learn, And then I also have that boundary as well, where it's like I can just be in my present self. That, you know, if there's too much coming at me and my ring is too small, then it's like I retract and I go inwards. Whereas I just go, oh, okay, just let my hands come out a little bit further and feel the space around, and then trust that I can stand in that space, no matter what's moving around me, kind of like feeling my own eye of the storm, so to speak.
So would you say that, I mean, how old are you now?
24.
24. So would you say that you've found or are finding or have found your center? Because it sounds to me like you're quite aware of your center and you're quite grounded, because the way you're speaking is very grounded, even though it's not how most people would see the world, but it's very grounded to me. It doesn't seem to carry expectations or showing up, but maybe that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, it's like I've been finding that more and more. I have been really relinquishing any concepts or ideas or expectations or perceptions of the people around me and family and people that I've had links to for a long time. It's kind of giving them permission to be whoever they show up as today.
Yeah.
And then doing the same for myself, whatever that is. And it kind of gives me an opportunity to, it's like I no longer have these kind of, you know, when you kind of feel like, oh, but, you know, they're doing this and they always do this, or, you know, oh, why is someone doing that, or, you know, whatever it is. It kind of gives me space to just feel free of all of that turmoil where the mind just starts to run with whatever it's been given because of whatever it's taken from the past to base on.
Yeah.
It's almost just giving myself permission to be completely present and everyone else to do the same.
Yeah.
And in integrity, not just like, oh, you can do whatever you want and I'll just accept it, but just sort of allowing them to be in their space, because understanding that, you know, every day we wake up and we feel a little bit different, and depending on what's happening in our lives, it's going to look and taste and smell a bit different. And
yeah. So what happens then if a trigger comes in that situation?
I find that when a trigger comes in, for me, there's this point where I guess it hits me, and then I need to go and take the time to feel it and understand it and digest it, and then from there I decide what to do and whether I need to do anything at all.
Yeah.
But I've been finding that when I do get triggered, there is this, if it's a strong trigger, it's like quite a physical response, and then my mind will start racing and I can get quite flighty, which I think is where I come across as ungrounded, but it's almost because my mind's just going, it just moves through things really rapidly.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I'm able to sort of resolve it quite rapidly as well.
Yeah.
Once my mind stops running, and then I allow it to drop in, and then to feel it, and then to understand it, and then see the perspective, and then have the moment where I'm like, oh yeah, I understand, and now I feel it, and now I can relax. But yeah, I have found that in the past and even recently that I can just be very like jolted by triggers. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because it's almost like what I'm imagining is that the connection that you have with your energetic body, or even yourself, or the physiology of your body, it's almost like the trigger will come in, and then there's this jolt or wave of energy that you're not expecting, because it seems you're quite a peaceful person. And so what I'm seeing is naturally a person will have a reaction to the trigger, or they'll want to fight the trigger, or their tissue will go into a defensive pattern, which I think is happening, but you're taking a step back to process it before taking action.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then understanding what's my responsibility in the trigger, or what do I have to look at within myself.
Yeah.
Do you find sometimes, so will you take action if the person has overstepped the boundary, or it's inappropriate, or you feel that there's something
they could learn from it?
That's something that I've been working with recently, is deciding whether or not if someone does cross a boundary or hurt me or do something that's out of line or out of character, there's this point where I feel my central nervous system going into shock, and then I freeze, and then I take a step back, and then I let that kind of balance, and then it's the point of whether I've been moving through this point of being able, whether reaching out to understand them, to kind of, to give me clarity as well for exactly where they were coming from, or, you know, unravel all of that, or also just taking a step back and saying, like, almost understanding that sometimes the most compassionate thing that I can do is look after myself and my space and my energy and say thank you but no thank you, and understand that if someone actually wants to become a better person or fight for themselves or step up, they have to take the step, rather than, I find that in the past I've always sort of kind of been like, here's the tools and here's this and here's that, and, you know, but I'm understanding that it needs to come from the self rather than another for most positive change to happen.
Yes.
And just allowing, when they're ready, to step forward, and if they want to like, they, you know, making them understand that if they want to become a better person or whatever it is, that I'm here, but until then I'm not going to be, it's like, I guess, soothing them.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got quite a lot of self-respect. Have you always had that?
No, I haven't. I was talking to my friend Talia, and we were talking about some things, and she was like, "What if it was Bianca? What do you imagine Bianca would do if someone treated her like this?"
Oh God.
But it was perfect though, because I was like, Bianca wouldn't take this shit. Like,
God. It's so funny that you say that, 'cause we're pulling apart the good, the bad and the ugly, and I'm really realising that sometimes in the past I may have shamed my ugly, but my ugly is just as important as my good.
it is. Yeah.
Because I kind of was falling along the movement of I'm so positive and I'm a spiritual being, but what it was actually doing was I was having a lot of disrespect for myself, and then people were kind of, what's the word? They weren't taking responsibility for their own stuff, and so I was in the washing machine rather than making a strong boundary and saying, well, that's okay, you can do that, but I'm going to respect myself and where I stand in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I used to be like, you know, sometimes it's not about my needs, it's about the collective, or it's about, you know, it's not just about my needs. Like, I didn't want to be selfish.
Yeah.
But actually having the understanding that, you know, being selfish is actually understanding that you can't help anybody if you're reinforcing a negative attachment cycle with them.
Exactly.
And it's just going to, even if you think that it's the right, if you know, I may believe it's the right thing, but it will just reinforce that behavior to repeat itself because they know that they can, you know, if they go a little bit too far, that there's nothing to lose either.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, even if they're unconsciously doing it, by you being consciously aware of what's actually happening to you, can stop it in its tracks. And they may not understand why it's occurring, but it's not about them really.
Yeah.
And I think that word, I mean, for me, ever since lockdown, actually, that word selfish is coming up, that if I don't tar it with the brush that I tarred it with in the past, selfish is actually, if we were all selfish and looked after ourselves and took responsibility for ourselves, we wouldn't have so much of this leaning on cross-pollination, you know, disrespect of boundaries.
Yeah, it's all these like little unspoken energies that just have this like slightly, they don't quite feel right. Like the interactions, there's tension, there's that underlying unexpressed, like when you haven't fully resolved something and you're both not saying it, but you're just kind of both allowing it, be like just saying like let it go, but not bringing it to the air, and then it starts to sort of slowly suffocate. And if you've got, you know, more and more of that happening, then it becomes like an eruption.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's kind of, as you were speaking, I was thinking of the sovereign movement, and everyone's claiming their sovereignty. It's almost like I am a sovereign being and I'm creating this boundary and I'm owning myself. But what I see in you, and I suppose for myself, is I don't have to declare that. It's not something I have to rise up and stand on a statue and say. It's almost like an understanding of I'm now accepting my relationship with myself. I'm honouring that union within myself. For me, that's what it feels like more than anything. Interesting. So, what makes you tick? What gets you up in the morning and what keeps you going?
What gets me up in the morning? I feel excited to engage in the world and get outside, and I like to start the day with just being out in nature and just kind of connecting and breathing and just feeling my own body and just experiencing that, and also just I guess something that gets me most excited is understanding consciousness, understanding energy, understand the connection between like every atom and every fiber and every being. And the more that I dive into that, the more I'm excited to learn. And at times I do still have moments where I feel afraid to fully step into it, because it's like, what if it doesn't click, or what if I don't get it or something? But then it's kind of like this, I laugh at myself because I'm already a part of it, and I'm already doing it without even consciously thinking. All of my cells, all of my being is already engaged, and I've just been really enjoying getting into flow state and into the space my I am, and allowing my mind to just rest and just take a back seat and just flow. And then the more I do that, the more the synchronicities drop in and the space opens up and the links come in and more laughter comes and more excitement and more joy. And when I'm really fully in those states, it reminds me of the point of being is to just be, and it all arrives. It all kind of seems to come in perfect formation, and there's it's not about effort. It's no effort.
Yeah. So do you ever get into states of fear or worry, or because it's very present what you're saying, but is there any states of concern or fear or worry about reality or future or forward thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is, because sometimes it starts to go into a space where when there is lack of completely understanding, it's almost that creates an illusion of reality that can get almost carried away and then no longer become grounded either. Or also just in general, I do have moments where it's almost just afraid to fill up space, or afraid to assert my will, or in a way, because I've always been, I guess I developed a program where I felt like that was dominance as well. So it's like there's been fear around being a dominant force in my own life.
Yeah.
To just actually be like, I just want this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to work for it, and I believe that no matter what, I can just achieve that goal.
Yes.
And I've been really working to relinquish those like fears and all of that stuff to just do it. Yeah.
And just kind of identify when you've left your centeredness, you're so far in the story, and then go, oh, hang on a minute, just come back, where's my mind taking me, or am I going down a path of story? I suppose that comes with awareness, though. because I watch myself sometimes too, and I can be stuck in story for a really long time until I go, oh, hang on a minute, that's not even reality right now. I'm worrying about things that don't even exist.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've been really realizing is that we have an infinite potential of what state of mind we can be in at any given time, and understanding the difference between, is this a fear-based reality or is this a reality based on like love and trust and joy, and identifying the difference, and then being able to be like, either, okay, yeah, we've gone into story, time to take it back. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of how I identified. I'm like, is this fear-based or not?
Yeah. Okay, so what do you hide?
What do I hide? I feel a lot of things.
Exactly. I know.
I feel like there's lots of different aspects that I hide, or I guess one would be my dominance. I hide my dominance. Sometimes I hide my little girl, or I hide my woman, or I hide my desires, different everything. Yeah.
So do you feel that your safety net, or where you're ready to go, or your boundaries just evolve slowly?
Yeah, and it's almost, it just comes down to trusting myself, and then trusting that space a bit further out, and then trusting the people that are around me in that space, depending on who they are and how, connected I am. Like, say I'm with you and I'm comfortable, I feel like I can just be raw and vulnerable, and know that that's not something that's going to be used against me later, because we've got all these defense mechanisms from our history, I guess. Yeah.
So that was the next question. What do you defend? So it's almost like, because for me as a mother, I can be in that peace state, and then all of a sudden a trigger will come up, and I'll fiercely defend my children or defend the people that I love, and I can feel that the constitution of my body actually change immediately as I go into it. So, and I know that you do, what is it? Martial arts. What's it called?
Oh yeah, Muay Thai.
Muay Thai.
Yeah.
So, what do you defend?
I feel like for me doing, do you mean directly with doing martial arts as well?
No, as in yourself.
I feel like I defend my innocence in a way. I feel like I have to protect that, because I feel like, oh yeah, felt that. Ooh. Yeah, I feel like I have to sort of protect that part of me that feels like so pure, or that's just so raw and so beautiful, but also so vulnerable at the same time. So yeah, that's what I defend. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So would you say, what would be a fair percentage of your energy goes into defense each day?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so it's like a balancing act. It's not conscious, it doesn't seem like it's here, but it's like your tissue would be in that state of balancing between the innocence and the defense, of how you're going to show up, feeling into what feels safe and what doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? It's kind of like, I feel that in some way we're all like that, and then we can program ourselves to internalize that relationship of innocence and defense, just so we can show up and present, or just show up and do something so we've overcome it, but it's still there on the inside, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe what everyone's holding on the inside, you've got very close to the outside.
That's what I found and when I realize that other people don't have that on the surface, or they've got something else that they're, you know, whether it's like they're doing stuff because they want to gain something, or their energy isn't coming from that same place, I used to get really shocked.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, what? But just understanding that is, everyone has this mechanism that comes into play because there's this feeling that's too fragile, or it's being too hurt, or whatever it is. And I also feel like that's almost what this work is about, bringing people home to that space and feeling safe in that, and understanding that they can have a boundary, that they can just feel grounded and rooted to the earth and centered and switched on and conscious and present, without needing to run away from anything, and just know that whatever comes to them, this aspect of us that is so pure and beautiful is just going to be able to flow and move with whatever comes our way. But we've almost just been taught, if we want to stay safe, we have to fight, or we have to have some kind of superiority, or whatever it is. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? So it seems, I mean, ego came up. The statement doesn't have a lot of ego in it, but I'm sure you have an ego.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with your ego?
My ego, I used to be really mean to my ego, or my ego used to be mean to me, with the judgment and the criticism and the self-deprecation, all those different kind of things. But it's interesting, I feel like lately I've just I just kind of laugh at my ego. And then sometimes I do go into story where the ego is like, you know, talking in my ear, I'm like, no. And then I've started developing just like this practice where I just say, thank you so much for protecting me, you've done a good job so far, but I don't need you anymore. And a lot that really like sprung that really back into my practice and my being was the weekend with Ken.
Yeah.
Of just, it was like this moment where it's like I'd understood these concepts, but that just took it to a whole new level of integration that I was like, wow. So thank you for that, because that's really helped me have a better relationship with my ego, and understanding that the ego is important.
Yes.
and it's part of the physical body. It's like the mind and the body is like this kind of filter, and that filters the soul being expressed in whichever way it needs.
Yeah.
But without the ego, and we couldn't have a physical experience.
No.
Because the frequency would be too high, we'd fall apart. So I'm thankful for the ego, and sometimes the ego does need to step in when you need to just act and protect and whatever it is.
It's interesting because your energy's changed too, and you've become stronger. I find that too. I have a great relationship with my ego, and I don't back down now, because sometimes I give it the feedback, or it gets the feedback, or I need to say what I need to say, and it does trigger people. Which is quite funny too, because I just go, yep. That's okay.
Yeah. And it's good, because it's almost like that makes them check their ego.
Yeah.
Because it's like then they have to sort of, and then it gets flipped to them, and then that becomes
Yeah, it's true. I actually realised 2 weeks ago, because being in lockdown and being surrounded by my family is the only waters that I've been playing in, the vibrational waters, how much when Tommy and I don't have enough intimate connection, how we have an egoic relationship with him. Oh my God, it's just hell. And it's like we get to this point where it's like, ah, and then finally after we both erupt, and then we go, oh my God, truly, like really, you know. And it's so fascinating. And so it was probably in that moment where I started to see when I chop and change between people, and then sometimes I'm like, Oh, there we are, head to head. Okay.
It's amazing.
It is. It's so good to have awareness. And it makes me think about for how long I was asleep. Even though my values were good and my intention was good and I always came from heart, which makes me realise I'm not a different person to who I was before. And I'm not some amazing enlightened being now and I wasn't before. I still had the same constitution. I just was different.
Yeah, it's like you understand, it's like it's an aspect that has always lived in you, but you can just understand it and have a different way to interact with it and communicate with it as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the essence of it all, and probably the purpose behind doing this podcast in a way was to make things okay and to not say this is good or this is bad, but to bring things to the surface so we can all realise that we're human.
Yeah.
And that we're not on different levels, and that this person's this and that person's that, and this person's woke and that person's asleep and that guy's a bogan and this is that.
I know, it gets
and it's so stupid really, because it's like everyone is our teachers, and if we're open we can learn from an insect and a mosquito, let alone, you know, we can sit in a pub with a guy who eats steak and drinks beer and he can teach us something as much as the Dalai Lama kind of thing. That's my philosophy anyway.
Yeah, it's like I've been finding that it's like, it's almost people confuse the coming home to being like, oh, well, I've come home so I can only have interactions with other people that have come home to themselves, or whatever that concept even means to them.
Yeah.
And where it's like, it's the complete opposite. It's like, for me, it's like, you know, no matter what my ego is pulled out of me, I'll just give it a hug and be like, I love you, thanks. Like, and then I can just look at everyone and be like, everyone is beautiful.
Yeah.
And everyone is worth engaging with, whether it's like they come at and spit their venom at you or whatever they do. It's just like, I just allow you to be whatever expression you need to be right now, and golds can come in so many different forms.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I find that, you know, in different communities and stuff, it's like we put people on, humans have a tendency to put, you know, one or multiples on a pedestal, because it's like they kind of can see the embodiment that they wish to be without understanding that is already them.
Yeah.
Whether they get triggered with like jealousy or like whatever it is, it's like, you know, anger. Sometimes people can be like, oh, they think they're so great, or why can't I be like that, or I wish I was more like that. It's like you wouldn't see something that doesn't exist inside of you. It's like your choice to step into that beingness. It's like you've just been given a direct reflection. It's like, yeah,
it's true. It's funny how we naturally try to separate and create separation and comparison. And I even watch myself too with, you know, ex-partners that I've had intimate relationships with, and how they still show up in ways that I don't condone, listen to the word, or it doesn't make me feel good, but isn't that interesting? It doesn't make me feel good. So I'll create a distance from it because I don't ever see it changing and I can't change it.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So it's like, okay, if it doesn't sit well with me and I can't change it, then I have acceptance for it. And then I leave it alone rather than interfere with my opinion. It's like, okay, I can't change it, now I accept that.
And it's almost like that's because some people may look at that as separation, but I see that as like the opposite as well, because it's almost like when you understand, it's like, oh, I feel that, I understand it, I need to put space between that just to allow it to exist, without judgment or criticism, but just allow it to exist, and I don't need to engage in it to try and fight it or try to change its mind or try to manipulate it.
Yeah.
Because that is what will create the separation, because you never know what's going to come full circle and be re-delivered to you and to evolve and change again.
Exactly.
Something that is like this now, it's amazing how fluid and quickly things can change again.
Yeah.
And accepting the new each time it rolls around. well.
It's true. And it's also a projection of my discomfort, because initially the communication is a projection of their discomfort, which projects my discomfort, and then we all have discomfort. Which is ultimately what happens when you have a separation.
Yeah, and you don't see eye to eye anymore.
Exactly. So there's going to be discomfort, and perhaps you never will. Isn't that interesting? Can there be peace from that?
Yeah, I find that it's almost like peace in knowing that you will never be sure if there is peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like, because I've gone in circles with the same thoughts as well, like how, is there something that I need to shift within me to resolve this? Is there something that I haven't fully, digested or understood, and that's creating me to have a reaction, or creating them to have a reaction, whatever it is. And then I just got to this moment where it's like, I just am going to allow it to exist.
Yeah.
And that's actually okay.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that needs to be said or done or changed, because it's like as I shift and just be myself, I understand that everything else shifts, and if it does, any energy that does presently resonate will just naturally drop in, and it's okay if this energy doesn't presently resonate. And just being accepting of that with love, even if there has been hurt from it as well.
Yeah, because that's really reality, isn't it?
Yeah. So we do have to walk with the pain, like have peace, but pain, it's hard to even say, when people say, oh, I've dissolved all of my pain, I've completely gone into peace and I no longer feel it anymore, but then somehow down the road something else triggers and somehow that kind of comes through again. It's like, do we ever fully release our pain, or we just understand the experience for what it truly is?
Well, the people who don't feel pain, I see them as disassociated. It's a disassociation from sensory experience, really, if we understand where pain actually comes from. Yeah, I mean, underneath it all, if we break down the layers, the fact that there's discomfort with an ex or a loved one is because you loved each other, and you probably still love each other, ultimately, if you break it down. And so in between all of that is the layers of hurt or wounding.
It's the grieving that sits there that can generally take the dominant force, rather than remembering that underneath all of that pain there is that, whatever it is, like hurt, pain, betrayal, suffering, is like underneath that there was always love.
Yeah.
And that, everyone at the end of the day is doing the best that they can with what they have and the tools that they have.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that, I kind of decided that there's no point trying to figure it out, or judge their process, because it's like that again is causing me to create further separation from that person, rather than just allowing them to be in their experience. And if something no longer resonates and something new resonates, then why would I want to stop them following what resonates and for me to do the same? Yeah, because what resonates as we grow will just shift, and that's kind of just what happens. It's like our partners are our teachers, but they're not necessarily designed to be forever. However, the experience and the learnings are infinite and forever, and the love is infinite. But the presence that we believe, if we had it, because we think that we want it, if we had it, there's a great chance that we wouldn't actually be satisfied with it either, because it wouldn't be giving us the learnings and the teachings that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes back to the anatomy. Satisfaction, survival. I mean, ultimately, as we mentioned the word selfish before, but our cell's primary action is for survival. Our cells want to survive, and it's like that's our primary, as a human being, is survival. It's like our whole body works on survival.
It'll do whatever it can to survive.
It's true. It's so amazing when you think of it that way. Even if we're trying to kill ourselves, or if we've got toxicity in our body, or we're starving our body, it still will try to survive in any way, shape or form that it can.
Yeah, we don't have control over it. The body is not, it's not partnered up with the mind.
No.
It's not on the mind's team, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So what do you love?
What do I love? I love music and frequency. I love feeling the earth and feeling nature. I love connecting with the people around me. I love feeling the heart and presence of others. I love sharing just experience and joy with myself and the world around me. And I love that it can be as simple as, a touch or a word or a sound that can just bring such peace and harmony and joy into my life. Just finding the satisfaction in all of the little things. Yeah,
Beautiful. So what do you want to be?
what would I like to be
When you grow up?
when I
Don't worry, I asked this of Lisa too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Lisa.
I ask it of myself all the time.
Yeah, it's a question I've been asking myself a lot, and it's been helping me take the another step in all of the many baby steps that I feel I've been taking over the last couple of years, and stepping into confidence. But I realized that I really want to work with the anatomy, and to be a therapist and a master of my work, and potentially someday a teacher. I'd love to be able to help people connect with their environment. Again, it's like their body's environment and the literal environment, because the connection between those two is so much closer than we could ever even have perceived, like the design. And and I've been really feeling the call really strongly as I step into this work, and to relinquish the fear that believes that I'm too young or not experienced enough or not smart enough or whatever it is, and just being like, I am a unique being on this planet, and no one will ever see or feel or touch with the same essence that I do.
Yeah.
So it's important to give that to the world and share that with the world.
Yeah.
Because it's we're here to co-create. We're not here to have a singular experience, and to keep it to myself would also be self-suffering. I would just be suffering. Like, my soul wants to expand out, and to give other people, allow other people to have permission to do the same.
Yeah.
And that we're all designed to be seen, and to be felt, and to be loved, and to be understood. And we haven't had that for a really long time on the planet, the keys and the knowledge and the tools to do that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, beautiful. It reminds me, Tommy had a saying, when you're delivering something of service, the universe will support you. They'll pay you for the service. It's like when we lock it inside and we're not actually doing this one, or delivering, or taking our wisdom or our inspiration or our intelligence or what we've learned. Because, like you said, only you can deliver it in the way that you can deliver it. Just like only I can deliver it in the way I can deliver it. And we've all got the same information.
Yes. Literally.
All of it. Everything. We all have unique differences, and that's the medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite amazing. It's beautiful. So, who are you? Let's finish with who are you?
Who am I? Bill after me was like, I'm a sovereign being.
Exactly. You can say that. It's just I'm having a giggle about it because I'm seeing it on the news and everywhere now.
Everyone's claiming themselves.
I know. And whatever works, you can do that.
Yeah, who am I? I am an energetic being with infinite potential, experiencing a beautiful 3D physical experience through the senses. And yeah, I feel like I'm just here to experience and to share. Yeah.
So I had this question written down, which is kind of the opposite for you, because I see you more of as who you are rather than your personality, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas most people, I have to go past the personality to get to the person. Whereas it's for you, because you're being and you're so much in being, when you're of service, it's like, and this is the most challenging thing, how does one label themselves? How does one make what they offer a product? I mean, you want to do all of this work with the anatomy and you want to get exchange, but is it as a scientist, or is it as a devotional practice, or is it as a therapist, as exchange? Can you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's like there's a holding back of the creation of your personality, or even though it's all over you, but you change, you chop and change between, Spanish festival and your student, and with your sister and with daughter and da 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 da.
Yeah.
So it's the defining of, and is that a scary thing, defining of your personality, or even your label, or putting that hat on?
Yeah. Is there a defining to do this work?
Well, yeah, because what am I trying to say? Well, I don't feel you've defined yourself, whereas most people have defined themselves.
Yeah, I do find that I have a fluidity about myself. And it's like when I'm in those different spaces, I feel like my true self is in it, but the way that I interact with the world would be different than if I was here with you, or I guess maybe with friends or at a festival or in therapist mode. But I still feel that aspect of me that is in there is always the one that's exploring that environment.
I get that.
Yeah, and I realize that there's no one staple that I walk as. And I feel like that's where I have gotten confused in the past about, am I grounded in who I am? And then when Ken told me that that was actually super surprising, because I feel like I can be quite changeable.
Yeah.
And that could come even with my water element as well. But I'm just finding it's more just, I feel like for me it's more to do with confidence. To be to just actually be the therapist and be the officialness of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And to just, I feel like as I have, the space opens up for me to work from when I'm no longer kind of, it's like when I bring people into my home, I feel like there's an aspect of, you kind of you become more of a friend with people sometimes. I find that especially if I am having clients that are friends, it's like I know that if I can take them into a space that's not my house or something, I can then just be fully in the clear energy.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of learning that that's actually a role that I can be, and it doesn't have to change who I am as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's why they called you Amy. Because maybe that's all we ever really need to know.
Yeah.
Our name.
Yeah, it's like, it was weird for me to put Amy into a title, you know?
Yeah.
Into another title and try to be that title.
Yeah.
When that's, you know, that just comes with the documentation of this is what you've achieved as, you know, a graduate or whatever.
Yeah.
And when people ask me like, oh, like, what do you do? And I always hate answering that question because it's amazing because it opens up, you know, different things, and, you know, we're all curious about each other. But I feel a part of me feels so tired of like people saying, what do you do? It's like, what do you love?
Yeah.
Rather than telling them you know, facts about, you know, things that I've done in my life. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think the door's going to be open between you and I, Miss Amy. I think this podcast is going to linger because it's not about closing the door, because I feel like it's just your door is open and whatever's going to be is going to be.
Yeah, it'll drop in.
Yeah, because it's like you can't. We try to frame something, or we try to put it into a space, but really that doesn't exist anyway. We're just doing it for our own comfort, aren't we?
Yeah, it helps us understand or feel like we have a grasp.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Lovely. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.